Now, what time would your party start, let's say?
Like 9:30.
Really? That early?
Yeah.
I could make that.
Yeah.
But I could think of you of starting a party at like midnight. Like, what time will it go till?
That's a different type of party, though.
Uh-huh.
No, it'll go from like 9:30 to like maybe 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And then, you know, we have the top 2 floors of the hotel. You know.
And then it will carry on there?
Yeah. Then No, I mean the after party.
No,
I just found something interesting, and it set the conversation off. Joe Rogan just said something that has people looking sideways at the silence around Ellen DeGeneres. With the Sean Combs situation dominating headlines and timelines, the same question keeps coming up. How is nobody connecting the dots people keep pointing at? Because Ellen's name keeps surfacing in these conversations, and a lot of people feel like it's being quietly ignored.
birthday party, am I invited?
Yes. Yes, you're definitely invited. I invite you to all my parties. You just haven't seemed to show up.
No, well, is it on the East Coast?
Yes.
Well, that's why. Why don't you have one here on the West Coast? Because I work all the time.
Okay, well, maybe I have one at your house.
Where's that? I know about them.
When Diddy was hit with serious federal charges, the public did what it always does. It went digging. Old clips, old interviews, moments that people laughed at years ago suddenly landed very differently when replayed through a new lens. That's where Ellen enters the picture. People started resurfacing clips of Ellen and Diddy on her show, looking unusually comfortable, laughing, joking, leaning into party talk like it was harmless fun. At the time, nobody questioned it.
All right, we're back with Sean Diddy Combs. Is it Diddy today? Because sometimes you're Puffy and sometimes you're Diddy. Or sometimes you're Daddy. What are you today?
I'm so confused today with it, as long as you say it in a nice...
But now, with the conversation shifting, those same jokes are getting rewatched like they might have meant something more. And here's where Joe Rogan comes in. On his podcast, Rogan questioned why Ellen hasn't been pressed the same way others have, even though Diddy appeared on her show multiple times. And the party talk wasn't subtle. It wasn't background noise. It was on camera, casual, open. And now viewers are reinterpreting it as part of a much bigger story.
Be a new thing? Are you going to try to be early?
Yes, I'm trying to be early.
Are you going to be early for my party?
Yes, I am. No.
No.
You know I have to arrive fashionably late.
All right. Not too late, though.
Not too late?
Not too late, please.
What time would you like me there?
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
But not too late, because, you know, once you get there, the party really starts.
Yeah.
You know?
When you really sit with it, the silence starts to feel loud. So the question becomes, is this just awkward timing? Or is it one of those topics nobody wants to touch? And it gets stranger when you look at the timeline. Remember when Ellen's show ended after the toxic workplace scandal? That wasn't just a headline. It fundamentally reshaped how people viewed her brand.
I guess Diddy just kept people at his houses because he's got multiple houses and he's just had freak out part. Look at him. Look at Saucy said down and go, Saucy.
Yeah, no, Saucy's crazy. Have you seen Saucy?
Former staff described intimidation, racism allegations, toxic management, and a culture where people felt scared to speak up. The contrast is what stuck with people. The brand was "Be kind." The stories sounded like pressure. Several executive producers were removed. Ellen addressed it publicly and said she wasn't aware of everything happening behind the scenes. Some people accepted that explanation, others didn't.
I do feel like you may not do that. You're neat, though, right? I would imagine your closet is color coordinated. Everything is hung in a certain, right? So you're neat. It's just that you're not the person that puts it back. All right.
Either way, the trust was damaged. Not long after, the show ended. Ellen said it was because it wasn't challenging anymore. But many viewers read it differently, like the image never fully recovered. Then, she and Portia moved to the UK, with Ellen tying the decision to politics. Fair explanation. But again, the timing raised eyebrows. Not because of proof, but because perception drives conversation. Now back to Rogan. During his discussion about Diddy, Rogan pointed out how bizarre it is that for years, so many celebrities openly joked about Diddy's parties like it was a badge of honor. He mentioned names like Ashton Kutcher and others who casually referenced those events without hesitation.
All right, well, let me catch up on what's been going on with me since you saw me last. I decided to take up gardening. I got chickens. Let me see what else I can tell you about that. Been going on. Oh yeah, I got kicked out of.
And then he said the quiet part out loud. One of the biggest places that party talk played out publicly was Ellen's show. His point wasn't an accusation, it was about patterns. How so many people openly orbited these parties, laughed about them on camera, and now claim they saw nothing.
There's no beef with Diddy, but it's got to go down. The bits are there. I'm a gold miner. I just found...
While today's allegations paint a much darker picture. And there's one moment people can't let go of. A 2018 interview where Diddy tells Ellen he invites her to all his parties, and she never comes. Then he adds that the parties start early, but the real party starts later, after midnight, on the upper floors.
Just, you know, so you have, if you don't have what they need, they're gonna leave.
Right.
Gotta keep them there.
Right.
You need locks on the doors.
Okay, this is sounding kind of dangerous now.
It's a little kinky, but
Ellen reacts like she knows exactly what he means. That reaction, that familiarity, is what people keep replaying. Not because it proves anything, but because once a story shifts, old footage stops feeling innocent. And that's where the conversation is right now. No, I mean the after party. No, I know about those. That exchange is exactly why people won't let this go. So let's break down why this matters, and why Joe Rogan finds it strange that Ellen DeGeneres barely gets mentioned in mainstream coverage of the Diddy conversation. First, the obvious part. Ellen had Sean Combs on her show multiple times, and the party talk wasn't a one-off joke. It was recurring, casual, comfortable.
As you may have heard, this summer there were allegations of a toxic work environment at our show, and then there was an investigation. I learned that things happened here that never should have happened. I take that very seriously, and I want to say I am so sorry to the people who were affected.
Treated like an inside reference the audience wasn't fully in on. Then people started pulling older clips. One that keeps resurfacing is a 2002 moment on Conan O'Brien's show, where Diddy jokes about needing locks on the doors at his parties. Back then, it played as exaggerated humor. Today, people replay it and say it doesn't land like a joke anymore. It lands like foreshadowing.
Party, but there's a camera that swings around and they go, hey, yo, oh, Odell Beckham. And you see Justin Bieber's head come up from his crotch and he looks in the camera and he's very confused. It's a really disturbing video.
At that time, Puff was the biggest guy in the world. You know, you couldn't even get in his parties. And he was throwing a party and he said, yo, Playboy, this party's $1.5 million. I said, for what? I mean, what are you saying? It costs $1.5 million to throw this party. I said, Puff, I love it. The party's amazing. Yes, the mayor is here and everything. I said, but that's too much. What? I said, you come to my place in LA, I'll throw you a party for $400. That will rival this party. And he got a little mad. He was like, yo, no, I'm known for this shit.
Whether that interpretation is fair or not is up for debate. But once clips start circulating, the question shifts fast. What did people know, if anything? And why is nobody addressing it now? Viewers also resurfaced a 2016 tweet where Ellen jokingly nicknamed Diddy with playful language, and clips where she's approached with questions years later and doesn't engage. Some people read her body language as uncomfortable.
This leads me to the perfect thing, because I would like you to clear something up. There's
Yes.
a lot of talk going on with Chris Brown being at your place in Miami, and you arranging Chris and Rihanna getting back together.
and it's my house. And I'm allowed to give my house to whoever I want to give my house
Sure.
to. That's number one. Number two is that I'm the type of person that I don't cast a stone or cast a judgment on anybody. And so if a friend or friends ask me for a favor, then I'm going to be there for.
Others say that's just how anyone looks when they're ambushed with loaded questions. Either way, it added fuel. Rogan's point stays pretty simple. If you were close enough to have someone on your show repeatedly, joke about the party culture on national TV, and react like, yeah, I know what that means, then people are going to expect a response when the conversation turns serious. Not because you're guilty, but because silence creates its own narrative. And that's the perception layer Rogan keeps pointing to. Now here's where it gets more complicated. People started linking this to Ellen's workplace scandal, where former staff described a culture of fear, pressure, and feeling unable to speak up. That doesn't prove anything criminal, but it explains why commenters keep drawing parallels between power, silence, and celebrity circles, where influence runs deep. Some former crew stories, whether fully accurate or not, describe tense environments, strict control, and certain guests allegedly being kept off the show due to internal conflicts. Again, not proof of crimes, but it feeds the pattern people argue about: control, image management, and silence. Once the public sees a pattern, they don't just watch clips, they reinterpret them. And there's one contrast people keep highlighting. Back in 2009, after Chris Brown was accused of assaulting Rihanna, Ellen pressed Diddy on air about why Chris Brown was even allowed at his house. She spoke strongly about not wanting young women to think it's okay to return to abusive situations. That clip still exists. Later, when allegations surfaced about toxic behavior behind the scenes on Ellen's own show, former staff described experiences that felt abusive to them. That contrast is why people use the word hypocrisy, not because it proves a crime, but because the optics don't line up cleanly. Then zoom out again. Reports came out that Ellen and Portia sold their Montecito property and moved to rural England, publicly tying the decision to the political climate. Reasonable explanation. But because of timing, with Diddy's legal situation drawing heat, people folded that move into the broader speculation cycle. And here's where things get dangerous. At one point, false rumors started spreading online, claiming Ellen had an arrest warrant tied to Stephen Twitch Boss's death, and that recordings were played in court. Fact-checkers shut that down completely. It wasn't true. But what's revealing isn't the rumor itself. It's how fast it spread. People weren't asking, is this real? They were asking, does this fit the story? And when trust erodes, anything that sounds dark gets traction. That's the risk of moments like this. Rumors can outrun reality. Even in her Netflix special For Your Approval, Ellen acknowledged being pushed out of show business and joked about how the "Be Kind Girl Wasn't Kind" headline became her identity, which brings everything full circle. Because once an image cracks, silence stops feeling neutral. It starts feeling strategic, whether that's fair or not. And that's exactly why this conversation isn't going away. But what a lot of people focused on wasn't even the joke itself. It was the tone. The way Ellen DeGeneres talked about ego, exposure, and how loud the hate gets compared to the love. She said there are extremes in this business. People either idolize you or they hate you, and the hate is always louder. For some listeners, that didn't sound like accountability. It sounded like deflection. Not someone fully owning what happened, but someone still processing the fallout. Then another moment went viral that showed just how far this conversation has drifted. Aaron Rodgers went on Joe Rogan's podcast and tried to compare Ellen's old talk show set to Epstein Island because of similar-looking architecture. Rogan shut it down immediately, saying it was just a building in Los Angeles and likely coincidence. But the fact that it even came up tells you where Ellen's reputation sits right now. People are trying to place her on the same conspiracy map as some of the darkest names in modern history. Not because it's proven, but because the internet loves a cinematic storyline. Once a narrative feels dramatic enough, logic becomes optional. So what are people actually saying? Some comments claim Ellen knew more and is now living quietly in England while Diddy faces federal charges. Others argue Rogan is the only one willing to say what everyone else is thinking, asking why certain names get dragged endlessly while others seem to get softer treatment. Then there's the body language analysis. Clips of Ellen not engaging with questions get labeled guilty-looking. Again, that's not proof, that's perception. But perception is what fuels comment wars, and the pattern keeps repeating. Toxic workplace headlines, an apology people didn't find satisfying, a move overseas, silence, while the Diddy conversation explodes. Those pieces get stitched into one story. That's the engine driving all of this. A lot of people don't feel like Ellen ever really paid a price, so they're looking for a bigger explanation. Which brings us back to the question from the beginning. Why does it feel like nobody wants to talk about Ellen in this conversation? The answer many people land on isn't legal, it's social. Connections, money, relationships, influence, and the ability to shape a narrative, even after stepping away from television. What is changing, though, is this. People like Joe Rogan don't follow the same social rules. They say the quiet part out loud, not as a verdict, but as a question. And once a massive platform treats something like a valid question, the audience takes it and runs. To be clear, the controversy is not Ellen is worse than Diddy. That leap is reckless. The real controversy is why some names get interrogated nonstop, while others are handled differently. Even when the clips exist, the quotes exist, and the optics are messy. That's why this story keeps circulating. The Diddy situation triggered a rewind. Old interviews get replayed, old jokes get relabeled, and suddenly people aren't just watching entertainment anymore, they're scanning for patterns. So, what's next for Ellen? Probably a quiet life, unless someone comes forward with real, verifiable evidence tying her to anything illegal. Not vibes, not theories, not body language. She'll likely be remembered more for the toxic workplace era and the cold shift in her public image than anything connected to Diddy. As for Diddy, the legal fight isn't going anywhere. Appeals, filings, civil cases, and a nonstop echo that keeps pulling more names into the conversation, whether they belong there or not. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Ellen knew more than she ever admitted? Or is this just the internet doing what it always does, turning old clips into a storyline? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns of celebrity drama that mainstream coverage tiptoes around, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This story isn't done, and neither are we.